Hi, everyone. Welcome. Carl Steinbeck here. I want to talk tonight about the Dan Markel murder case again. This time I wanted to talk about a subject that's come up in different discussions about what were the Adelson's connections to this powerful Weinstein family. The eldest Weinstein is Peter Weinstein on the thumbnail that is posted here. He's the guy on the right. He's the father, and the other guy is his son, Michael or Mike Weinstein. So Peter and Michael were very closely connected to the Adelsons. In fact, Peter's wife, named Barbara, she was also very close friends with Donna. And so there you had this couple. They both came from New York. They've both been in Florida about the same number of years, almost 40 years. Peter's a couple years younger than Harvey. And so they had a natural fit in terms of likes and interests and whatnot. Granted, Harvey was not an attorney like Peter was, but in any event, they had a lot of interests and whatnot together as well as their wives did. And so those are the power couples down there in Miami for almost 40 years now. And they could have had some longstanding connections back to the Adelsons, back even in New York City. I'm not aware of that, but in any event, it's a longstanding relationship. And then keep in mind that Mike is also around the same age as Charlie, the son of Harvey and Donna Adelson, who is now behind bars, spending his life without parole sentence up there near Tallahassee, convicted of murdering his ex-brother-in-law, Daniel Markel. So I thought looking at some of the connections between those people, it makes you really wonder what exactly was going on between these people or what wasn't happening based on what the relationship was. And we don't have a lot of details as to what contacts there were between them, but I thought I'd go over a few things tonight to maybe help fill in some of the dots. And I would say that I want to bring in more information on this later. So I'm just going to do a little bit of overview tonight, and then we can do a more deep dive on the actual source information later. But keep in mind that this son of the judge, the chief judge, Peter Weinstein, he is a criminal defense lawyer there in the Fort Lauderdale, Broward County area. And he's a very good and effective one at that. And he is also a person that has run for office in the state house, just like his dad. His dad was a state senator there in Florida for like 14 years before he became a chief judge down there in Broward County area. So that's it's like the second biggest judicial district in the whole state. And so this guy wielded powerful influence in terms of whatever he wanted to affect. And he had all the connections he needed. It's those connections extended all the way up to Tallahassee. For those of you that don't know, Tallahassee is the state capital of Florida. So it's a little small town, only about 30 miles or so from the Georgia state line. And despite the bigger cities of Orlando and Miami, you have the state capital nested up there, sort of in the real lush tropical type vegetation area, real close to the Georgia border. So it's more like country around there. But I will say that Tallahassee is a very highly educated community. In fact, it's one of the highest educated localities in the United States in terms of advanced degrees, including PhDs. So it's not the hick town that the Adelsons thought it was and that Wendi mocked about in her book. So it actually has a lot of very, very sharp and highly educated folks that live there, a much higher percentage capita than the other major cities in Florida, like Miami and Orlando. So the thing is, as a criminal defense lawyer, this Mike Weinstein, being friends of Charlie, has been in position to help Charlie out before. Charlie's been in a couple of accidents. I know he had legal representation before. I've heard that Peter Weinstein has helped him get out of some speeding tickets and whatnot. So Charlie was always able to play fast and loose with following certain rules. You may recall him talking about how he's able to drive his boat down the causeway there and turn off the lights and drive, I think it was like 80 miles an hour, which is extremely reckless, and you're endangering lives of people in the waterway there. And he never got caught for doing that. And so maybe because of his lawyer connections that he felt like he was sort of untouchable. So we don't know exactly what this Michael Weinstein helped him out in terms of other matters besides this criminal case, but we do know that Michael Weinstein was the one that talked to Jim Lewis when the hit team got arrested. So if you recall, there's wiretap recordings of Jim Lewis talking to Katie McManwell, and he said he heard from Charlie's attorney, and that's this Michael Weinstein, and he wanted to make sure that nobody was talking. So Sigfredo Garcia's lawyer is calling Katie McManwell and telling her, "Don't worry about it. Don't let him scare you. This is sort of like a fishing expedition, or words to that effect, from law enforcement when Detective Isom was trying to get a hold of Katie McManwell." And so they're trying to put Katie at ease, like, don't talk to the police, don't cooperate, don't even think about flipping. And I think this is such a huge factor because I just can tell you, as a criminal defense attorney, if I ever had a situation in Texas, let's say, where somebody came into my office and they said they might be targeted by law enforcement for a murder for hire scheme, the very last thing I would be doing is calling up the hitman's lawyer to try to make sure they don't talk. If my client was innocent, I should say. And I don't know. I think it's really risky anyway to do that, even if you have a client that submits something to you that indicates that they want the other hitman not to cooperate with the police. So that begs a question: why would Charlie not want Sigfredo to talk to the police? How would this happen? Where he would pass something on to his lawyer, and then his lawyer calls Sigfredo's lawyer, Jim Lewis, at the time, and says, "Don't cooperate with the police." And keep in mind, my client is not going to cooperate either. Which, in other words, my client's not going to say that you guys were the hitman team, and the middle person being Katie. So that right there is also, if you think about it, what Georgia was asking Charlie about on her cross examination in his murder trial, when she asked him about, what do you isn't it true that your attorneys were communicating with one another? And Charlie denied it and claimed ignorance of this. But there's some other information, I believe, out there that George did not bring forward that would also corroborate that she wanted to bring out in court, but based on him having a connection with his attorneys and whatnot, she probably thought it wasn't worth the extra mileage and the potential legal issues on appeal based on what his attorney was doing, whether he had knowledge of that. So I think it just wasn't worth the risk at that point. But I thought maybe out of Katie they could have brought it out, the fact that she had an understanding that she was supposed to be quiet. And I think there probably would have been a lot of inducements that they could have asked Katie about if she was going to come clean on it, in terms of what was Charlie doing to string her along and making sure she wasn't talking. I think there was a lot of different inducements, whether it's talking about giving her title to a boat and offering her vacations and things of that nature. So I think that there's a lot more out there that we've not heard from Katie McManwell about. But I just say that this is such a huge point in indicating and showing that the attorneys had to know that Charlie was involved in it, because an attorney would not make that call to Jim Lewis unless you knew your client had something to do with it. It might have been something as simple as like Charlie going to his attorney and saying, "Please don't let these guys talk to the police. Tell them I'm not going to rat them out. Make sure they don't do the same on me." And he right there, he's not admitting he was a part of it, but the attorney can obviously see what he's talking about. Just like with you can see that would be very highly indicative that the person was behind the murder for hire plot. So that's what I think is very damning information for the Adelsons. And so that also leads us back to what Michael was doing to support Charlie Adelson, besides that interaction with Jim Lewis. We do know that he's also made a couple of statements to 2020 indicating what high character that Charlie and the Adelsons are, and that they didn't have anything to do with this. I've not seen those per se. I've only heard about them, but they are out there for the in the public domain. And I think that he's been a longtime friend for Charlie, so he's doing what he can to stand up and represent him and his family's interests. But yet, I looked through the court file. He's never actually formally filed a notice of appearance. He was one of the signatories to the statement that the Adelsons made, saying they had nothing to do with the murder of Dan Markel and anything involving any hitmen. They completely denied any involvement in that. And so this Mike Weinstein was one of the signers for that. And like I say, he never formally represented Charlie in the murder case up in Tallahassee. Charlie initially had a temporary attorney, and actually, I think there's two of them that I saw. One of them was some South Florida guy with the name Marcus, and that was just a short time before Daniel Roshbaum came on and was representing him from the rest of the time, along with Catherine Myers. So I think that when you look at what the attorney's behavior was for that, I think it's very indicative that they knew they had a issue here involving a guilty party, not someone that was facing some kind of extortion plot. And so when you look at the fact that the attorneys for Charlie Adelson never in 2016 or before, and to keep in mind, these people are making all these millions of dollars. They have attorneys on speed dial, including criminal attorneys as a good friend. You're telling me that Charlie never told him about the extortion? And you're telling me an attorney would not tell Charlie to go right away, go to the FBI and reveal this to him? Keep in mind, if Charlie would have reported this extortion attempt to an attorney, any reasonable attorney would have said, we got to go to the FBI. I'll make the call myself. Also, keep in mind what Wendi was doing at the time. She was interning with a federal judge. She could have gone to this judge. Keep in mind, this is a judge we heard on wiretaps that there was a reference to. He had actually called up to Tallahassee to find out what's going on in the case and possible the way ahead for Wendi as well. So you have these judges that are willing to do things like this. And then you also have Peter Weinstein being the best friend. He's also, keep in mind, the godfather of sorts for Wendi, even though they're Jewish and Jewish custom is not to have a godfather. I guess he was named like the godfather for Wendi. So he had this affinity towards the entire family. And of course, he would look out for them. So, and try to help them out. So the question is, what was discussed from the Adelsons to the Weinstein seniors, so both Peter and his wife Barbara? You're telling me that Donna would not have talked to Barbara about this if she was really extorted? So I think this is going to really play out as something that the prosecution might want to be prepared for in case Donna goes down this road that I have no idea that this was not really a true extortion attempt. I was just relying on my son. If she tries claiming ignorance of the at this extortion racket being a bogus one that a jury convicted Charlie for, being actually the murder for hire guy. So I think that looking into this relationship, looking how well connected they were, and looking at how these people would have been able to really give them the right information they needed to get to the police right away. And like I've said before, if Charlie would have done this, gone to an attorney and told them, hey, look, I've been extorted, and told them that as soon as extortion happened that night or the morning before, when on the 19th of July, when Dan Markel's actually died early that morning, around 1:30 in the morning, he could have got up that morning, called up any number of defense lawyers that he has a speed dial to and asked them, hey, what do I do? I've been extorted. And they could have set it up with the FBI. They could have had all kinds of stuff going on with law enforcement, swooping in, putting wires on him. He also didn't, he says he didn't think Katie was a part of this. So they could have protected Katie as well and set up a great type sting operation and bust, and basically captured the killers the same day that Dan Markel was actually murdered. And so you're going to pass that up for a couple of low-level criminals that really have zero education, and you with your many decades and decades of legal experience behind you. You also are highly successful, making money, running businesses and things of that nature. So these uneducated folks ran circles around you and outsmarted you, and they outslicked you into setting yourself up. Keep in mind also, there's no way I believe any attorney that has any amount of experience would ever tell their client if they're extorted, let's just sit back and wait. And if you ever get arrested, you can tell your story to a jury. You'll be the last witness. You'll have the last word, unless they call a rebuttal. And you can tell the jury at that time, and you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, over $1 million in defense fees. We can hire jury consultants and things of that nature. You can spend a couple years in prison, in jail up there in Tallahassee. And then you can tell your story, or you can go to the police right now and tell them you're being extorted. I mean, nobody would do anything but call the FBI or the police at that time. So I would say that this is something that again, just belies any common sense. Any halfway experienced lawyer, even some rookie right out of law school, is not going to sit on this kind of information. So it does appear that the uh, the attorney for Charlie Adelson did know that he should have gone to the police and he didn't. And the reason why you don't do that is you're hoping that nobody rats him out. You're hoping that none of these other hitmen will cooperate. And think about it. Katie had three attorneys at her disposal. She went to trial twice. The first time was a hung jury, and the second time she got convicted. The vote on the first jury was 11-1 vote to convict. You just had one aberration. So the odds of her being convicted a second time were super high. And what does she do? She still thinks she can win and fight it. And anyway, it's just really bizarre the way this whole case has twists and turns. You won't find a stranger case in true crime than this one, where you got so many characters acting in so many bizarre and suspicious and just really outrageous manner. And so I think you look at the connections that the Adelsons had to people in power. The another son of the Weinsteins is also up in the DC area now and overseas working foreign diplomatic type service for the US government. I think it's with the State Department. And so he's up in DC a lot. Whenever you have presidents that come through that area, you're going to see the Weinsteins at least taking photo ops with different presidents. And so they're that well connected and they know how to get stuff done. And think about it, they're not just connected there in Miami. With the 14 years that Peter Weinstein was there in the Senate up in Tallahassee, he wouldn't have lived there full time, but when the Senate is in session, he would have been living there for months at a time. And so you get to know the entire state and all the politicians and all the connections. And think about it, Meggs was there 40 years as a state attorney office, chief official there, chief prosecutor. So there's probably a high likelihood that if it wasn't Peter Weinstein running into him, that they at least had mutual connections. And so it'd have been very easy if there was going to be an attempt to get Meggs to back off. It wouldn't have taken much but a phone call in 20 seconds by somebody. So we don't have proof that that was done, obviously, but these are the kind of people that had the connections to be able to pull that kind of thing off. And thankfully, things have the tide has turned with the new state attorney chief there, the protege of Meggs, which is Jack Campbell. So, although very slow, too slow in my opinion, I give him credit for the fact that he is taking on the Adelsons, albeit one by one. I think that they should have been taken on all at one time. The progress is very slow, but I do appreciate the fact that they did speed up the efforts to nabbed the second Adelson and they grabbed Donna before she left the airport. I wish they also would have arrested Harvey and Wendi at that same time and tried the three remaining Adelsons all at one time. But that hasn't happened. They're just going the one at a time method. And so that's what we got to live with, it looks like. Maybe they'll do the last two together. We don't know. Keep also in mind on the jailhouse calls, Charlie mentioned to Donna that he learned from Mike that his phone was being tapped. So he had to alter how he could talk to Katie. How would an attorney know that your phone's being tapped? That sounds like somebody that had to have extreme political connections. Defense lawyers don't find out that kind of stuff. Only defense lawyers for rich people that are connected with rich people at the top, have connections with law enforcement, connections with judges, super connected. Only those people know that kind of information. So who do you have gotten that from? Keep in mind also, Peter ran interference from Charlie when Charlie got in trouble and was about to get kicked out of dental school. It's in the police report. It's been reported that Peter stepped up and helped defend Charlie and kept him in there and helped push him through the finish line to make sure he graduated. And I understand there was some issue about the other dentists didn't even want to graduate with him because they thought it was unfair and the system was rigged to help him and things of that nature. So it looked like there was a sort of a revolt of Charlie being able to graduate with them. So there's a lot of different little things like that that are out there that indicate That's how close the Adelsons were to this super powerful family. Donna, keep in mind, said, as we know, she said in her email to Wendi about how nobody's beaten the Adelsons yet, or Gibbers hasn't beaten the Adelsons yet. So why would she say that? And why did she have such confidence? And why was she willing to go to that extreme to say, even after she lost custody from this judge and the judge shut down her efforts to move the boys to the Miami area, why was Donna so much adamant that they were going to come out on top? Was it because she had connections? Think also the connection that Charlie had, and when he was bragging about how he got out of a speeding ticket. I heard this on one of the wiretaps to Katie when he was talking about how he got pulled over for speeding, and he was going between jobs, different dental offices, and the cop that pulled him over, he told him he was an ER doctor headed to Broward General, and he's saying that he didn't have to show his credentials, that he was an ER doctor or nothing. The cop just took his word for it, and he didn't have any like kind of ID on him or anything like that. The cop took his word for it, and then he mentioned something, the fact that he mentioned this to a defense lawyer, and he said that, hey, you could get criminally charged for misrepresentation of your status like that. So anyway, Charlie was sort of saying like, hey, that's how risky I am. I mean, even my defense lawyer friend told me, I could get arrested for that bogus excuse I made. So who was that defense lawyer friend? Was it this Michael Weinstein? If it wasn't, it just shows you there's even more defense lawyers out there that Charlie's friends with that are able to provide him ready, speedily advice. So you're telling me that Charlie would talk to a defense lawyer about how he got out of a speeding ticket and any potential ramifications that pose. But when he's extorted from guys that murdered his ex-brother-in-law, his nephew's father, that he's not even going to talk to them. So, then he's not, surely he's not going to even go to the police as well, the law enforcement types, the FBI. So it just makes absolutely no sense. And I've said before, everything about this indicates behavior and mannerisms that indicate guilt, and not just for him, but also his other family members. I also should note that in looking at this Mike Weinstein, he has good attorney reviews as being able to get people out of trouble. And I noticed one of the attorney reviews even talked about how he got somebody out of some flimsy extortion racket back in 2016. So the very year that that the hitman got it busted. Think about it. That would have been the perfect time for Charlie to go if he's too afraid and he didn't trust law enforcement back in 2014, and he's willing to pay that monthly amount, the IOUs, the installment plan for these extortionists, so-called extortionists. He's not willing to talk to his defense lawyer about how to get out of this. And this defense lawyer actually in 2016 got somebody out of an extortion racket. So the reason why he didn't get him out of this extortion racket and go to the law enforcement was because obviously there was no extortion racket. So I think that if the prosecution is smart, I think we will see them bringing up all the connections that Adelsons have had to different lawyers, all their different litigation lawsuits, more so by Charlie than anybody. But the Harvey and his mom were certainly very much involved. Excuse me, Charlie's mom were very much involved and always making sure their son and their daughter were always protected. And so I think that might be something you see that comes out in court. We didn't see it previously, these kind of connections, but I think it's something that would be smart for the prosecution to also anticipate, and in case they do try to bring people on their witness list to try to bring forth good character type evidence of Donna. I think these kind of things would be ready to show that it's just completely nonsensical that Donna really believed this was an extortion, and it was just an excuse to the fact that they're trying to cover up their involvement in the murder for hire of Dan Markell. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open up for questions. If you can put your questions in with a red question mark ahead of it, or with a Q with the question in red. I'm not sure how to do that, but some of you already know how to do that here. So if you've had a question previously, go ahead and copy and paste it and put it below here. So I'm going to go right here to the 7:25 mark. And I guess I'll backtrack just a second here to see if there's a red question mark. Yeah, just please don't still be professional about the Adelsons and any of the people we're talking about. I'm trying to have like a legal discussion here that'd be appropriate, like in a courtroom setting. So Pharaoh's asking that didn't Meggs retire? Is that the reason things have been moving? Well, they still moved really slow after he did retire in 2016. His replacement, Jack Campbell, was pretty much groomed by him, and Jack Campbell probably had to wait a while before he felt comfortable to do a complete reversal of what Meggs was doing. So, but yeah, if Meggs hadn't retired, yeah, but they probably never would have been arrested. Keep in mind, he was also against Katie McBanwell being arrested initially back in 2016, and he made that statement about they'd be sued by Adelsons if they arrested him because he said there wasn't even probable cause to arrest the Adelsons. I mean, that was just so ridiculous. I understand a couple days later, he goes, well, let's just say that we're still looking at it. So Charlie possibly could be, arrested in the future or something like that. But it was so wishy-washy and ridiculous, that comment he made. You never hear law enforcement prosecutors talking about stuff like that, about how they'd be sued. And surely there was more than probable cause because that same kind of information came forward and actually got Charlie convicted here last fall. Julie is asking, is it that the Adelsons sought their dollars and political connections to keep them out of jail? I mean, I think that emboldened them. I mean, if you think that you've always been getting out of trouble before, you never had to face the music and had consequences for what you're doing, whether it's you either don't get caught because nobody sees you doing it, or if you do get caught, you got your dad and his connections with the Weinsteins to get you out of hot water. I think it probably emboldened him. So is it directly the reason why? Do I think that Weinstein's knew this was going to happen? No, I don't think that. I don't think they'd have a legal duty to report it if they did know about it. But they definitely. It looks like for sure Michael did assistance to him after the fact. All right, so we got here the Side Barbie is saying, I assume Donna is going to argue that she was just an overprotective, meddling mother who can never plot a murder. They'll have some kind of defense that she's going to claim that, try to distance herself like that. So, like I say, they gotta show how much more involved Donna was in looking out and protecting her son, connections she had with lawyers as well. So that's the kind of stuff that I think would be helpful to rebut that kind of defense. Jill Argos is asking, don't you think Harvey was very involved with Weinstein and Son? I think Harvey was, best friends with Peter Weinstein. So I think he told him a whole lot. I don't know if he went so forward to say that, we did it. Can you help us out? But is it a possibility? He said, hey, look, this rogue prosecutor up there in that podunk Tallahassee, I sure would hate to see him get out of control and try to falsely accuse us of something. I mean, it could have been something like that. And obviously, this Peter Weinstein, unless he would have known about what his son told him about him trying to run interference and making sure the Adelsons are quiet, if he knew that, then he would have known that they're guilty, and anything he's doing is helping cover it up, I would say. So just don't know what conversation happened between father and son, but if it's like a normal father and son, that obviously is something that would occur. So I think by the attorney behavior that we've seen for all these Adelsons, I think they all are indicating that they were guilty from what I can tell, all the different clues and behavior patterns that I see. So I would say I'm surprised also with this the wiretap information getting leaked to the Adelsons. I cannot believe the FBI didn't follow it up and do search warrants and start building a case for whoever leaked that. And so that was really shocking. But that's what happens with the wealthy people. They get away with stuff that the normal citizens could never even dream about getting away with. Linda Mon is asking, can the people that have kept Wendy out of jail be called to testify? Well, I think what the prosecution needs to do is just go ahead and charge her. And I think how she was denied prosecution and who was involved in any kind of protection, I think that kind of stuff you're not gonna really bring out at trial. I think you need to bring forward the evidence showing she was guilty, not why the case was delayed. That would be very odd. But Cindy Collins asks, does Willie Miggs have some kind of immunity? Well, as a prosecutor, you do have qualified immunity. You basically you have discretion to pretty much do anything you want in terms of deciding whether to charge somebody and what type of charges to bring and when to bring them and all that kind of stuff. So unless you really have some kind of extreme or outrageous practice or a case you're not handling right, I know that the governor there in Florida recently removed a couple people in like the Megs and Jack Campbell position because they were not doing their job properly. And so I think that that's more of a rarity, I would say, for that to happen. But they're more likely to get removed from their job rather than have immunity from lawsuits. So getting sued with a qualified immunity is really difficult unless you have like a malicious prosecution, a civil charge where basically there was zero evidence to go after somebody, and they basically put them through the gauntlet of criminal charges and prosecution when they knew it was basically a case against somebody that was innocent. So that would have been something they never would have faced. I just thought that was really odd that Meggs made that statement publicly, acting like he was shouting a warning to the police that you're going to mess it up and get sued. And I'm just trying to be the wise one and tell you you don't have enough evidence, not even probable cause. So that was just really really bizarre comment to make. You just don't see that in law enforcement. Tennis girl one on one's asking, do you think the connection's not being used is a trial in the trial for Charlie means they won't use it for Donna? You got a different lawyer here. You got this local guy, Alex Morris in Tallahassee. So I think that the connection issue is an issue that you got the attorney-client privilege there involved. So I think that would be something for Donna. If it's one of Donna's lawyers that she's talked to, they probably don't want to go down that road. But I would say Charlie's attorney and the conversation, the fact that he did not report that, I would look for a way to bring that in to evidence to show that Charlie actually had his lawyer get a hold of Sigfredo's lawyer and Katie and make sure that they stay quiet. I mean, that right there is just going to blow it out of the water and show how this whole story was just an absolute farce. JJ Dawn is asking, do I think that the date for trial will be moved for the Jewish high holy days? I've heard some people talking about if they would move it or something like that, but normally what I've seen is, unless it's Christmas or even the week of Hanukkah, maybe might be a different thing. But this particular holy day, I don't. If the parties don't ask for it, the court's still in session, right? So I don't think that's going to be an issue. The rational party's asking if Wendy tried to flee to a non-extradition country today, does the FBI have enough against her for an arrest before she flees? I think that the FBI could arrest her. I think that the U.S. Attorney's Office would be wise to go after her and have that conversation with the state. That'd be nice if they would take an active role. I think they're just thinking that they're going to wait to see what state attorney's office is doing, even though they're so slow. They're going to let them try to get the Adelsons one by one. Maybe they've made representations that they will go after them, but yeah, it's just been really bizarre that you have all this FBI involvement in the case, and yet they have not prosecuted the Adelsons when the state attorneys have dropped the ball for so long. Mongeezy is saying, "How old is Detective Isom? I'm concerned that these key witnesses are getting old. We need some folks like Isom in good health for Wendy's trial." Yeah, I mean, that's something I've been saying. If you look at some of my previous videos, delay generally does not help the prosecution. Granted, there can be some things like a witness flip, or you'll hear conversations in jail and stuff like that. So, but waiting so long to bring the first Adelson to court and then waiting until the after Charlie gets convicted before you charge Donna. Now, granted, Donna's is starting a lot sooner. It's going to be a shorter time frame to trial from time of arrest to trial than it was for Charlie. But yeah, it's still way too long. Debbie Martin's asking, Meg's retired in 2016 after arrest. Interesting timing. Any thoughts? Yeah, I mean, maybe it was because he sort of stuck his foot in his mouth and said that there wasn't anything, to go against him. And when he did have to approve the initial arrest of Sigfredo and Luis Rivera, the hitman team that drove up there to do the murder. So maybe that was something that I don't know for sure because he obviously was also very senior in age, being 40 years there in the state attorney's office. That's quite a long time. God is good is saying, do you think Charlie was surprised or upset Wendy implicated him during her police interview? Do you think he will be tempted to flip because of this? I think it can provide a motivation. I don't think he's going to flip on her until he maybe loses more hope. I think right now he's maybe having it too easy there in La Cola, where he's with a bunch of cops that have been convicted of corruption. And so I think he's thinking he's not having as much of a threat as he thought he might. But in the end, it's going to take some time before that bears out and whether he's willing to do that. I'm sure he's very tempted, and him thinking that Wendy is living the high life down there in South Beach, and he's in jail, and he does for her. And I think that's very much he's motivated to do it. Whether he actually does or not, I think it's going to take some more time. I think if it's if Donna dies at whatever point and Charlie outlives her, then I think that could be a real. I think Wendy ought to be really scared at that point. But I do think that they're still going to arrest Wendy once Donna gets convicted. Just it's like I say, it's just so slow, and yeah, witnesses can die and become unavailable. So it's a more of a high risk game the longer you wait. Rebecca Polis asking, can Megs be seen as accessory after the fact or be in trouble with interfering with the pursuit of justice? Prosecutors have so much discretion and, it's a judgment call on whether you think you have enough to go to trial and stuff like that. And I suspect that Georgia is probably maybe frustrated that she couldn't bring charges sooner against the Adelsons and she couldn't bring more arrests sooner. I don't know for sure, but it's just a very, very odd method to just bring one at a time, take this so slow. It's like you're taking baby steps, not something you see out of really seriously experienced attorneys that know how to go after these defendants on heinous crimes like this. Nana is asking, did Wendy date Michael Weinstein? I don't know. How did how can Dan's son have any semblance of a normal life? I'm not sure what's going on with him. Obviously, things are stressful for the boys, and having the most of the contact with the Markells cut off like it's been, where the visitation's been denied for so many years. They don't really know their family up north in Canada, and so it's really sad. And hopefully, they do have a normal life. Hopefully, a normal life would include the Markells being having full unfettered access, as Wendy talked about in court. That was completely false. And do I think Robert Adelson will be called to testify at Donna's trial? I think he'll be on the witness list. I hope he's called, but I think those kind of details are critical. And but what they'll actually pull the trigger and do that or not, I do not know. I just think that they don't go as much into detail as I do in trial work. So hopefully they'll be more detailed. That you need to get into more details like this on a murder case. The devil's in the details, so I think it's very critical. Thunder Road Queen is asking, is there an updated warrant for Donna's phone due to updated technology? Is there something other than a Celebrite? As I understand it, I just heard this secondhand, but it sounds like they only need to do an updated search warrant on one of the phones, an iPhone. I believe it was for Harvey, and because they now have technology to open it, they just wanted to have the search warrant authorization extended so they could get that accomplished. So I think there's still more information there that's going to come to light. And I think this digital evidence may move up the arrest and prosecution period for the remaining Adelsons, minus of course the honorable one up in the Northeast, Robert. Lisa Burton is asking, how do I think Donna's really doing being locked up? What sounds like from True Lifestyles that Donna's staying active. She's like sewing classes and whatnot. She doesn't hardly talk to Daniel Roshbaum, her attorney in Miami, much these days, but it looks like Alex Morris, the local attorney, does see her on a somewhat regular basis. And so I think she's doing okay for right now, but I think what we're not seeing is how it's going to wear on her over time, because this is still the initial period. She's been in there since November 13th. So every month wears on you a little bit more, and she's got till September 30th time frame. So I think that's going to be something that remains to be seen how well she's able to handle it. After all, she's like going to be 74, and the food is not going to be good. She's used to having top quality food. Granted, she's exercising, but you don't get lot of sunlight either there. So I think those kind of things can rapidly accelerate and make it hard to maintain your peak health. Side Barber's asking, wonder what the history of campaign donations looks like for Harvey and Donna. Yeah, I was starting to look in that the other day. So if somebody else wants to do that, I don't have the time to do that, but I think that would be something that's interesting. I don't have any info. Gran made us is asking any info on current Wendy and Harvey's community life. No, I don't have any information on that. Any updates on Wendy, and is she being watched by investigators? I think they're just worried about building a case against her, not so much what's she doing from a day to day standpoint. Chloe's mom is asking if I think that they had more damning evidence after the bump in 2016 than in 2014. Yeah, I mean, the bump was very critical. I think the conversation they had for Donna is what's really going to be key in sinking her. She does not sound like she's not part of the murder hiring activity. If she's going to claim that she thought, this is something that only her son was involved in, she had nothing to do with it, a jury's just not going to believe that. She sounds like she's part of the operational planner like her son. Modified Mod is asking, is the prosecution intimidated. I think they have been over the years. I think that's part of the key as well, why you go one at a time. And I think that that's something that they're building confidence on now. They have a lot of momentum. I think the way they were able to build all that evidence into the record and being able to do those arguments that I thought were like a documentary or television, excuse me, or movie special. I thought that was very critical in helping just pull all these strings together because there's a lot of data in this case, much more than you normally see in a murder case, because you got so many players doing so many different things and you got so many years of covering it. So you really got to study this case a long time, much more than a normal murder case to really pull it all together. The two has a comment, not a question. I know life isn't fair, but after 9 years, if you keep the faith, law can do a K turn. Yeah, I mean, it's you got to keep believing and talking it and encouraging the prosecution to do the right thing. Anthony is asking if there's enough evidence to go after Harvey. We don't hear much about his involvement. Well, actually, I did do a segment about 3 weeks ago. If you look at my channel, I did address that Harvey in the crosshairs is a title. And so if you look at that, I think you'll see that he definitely has some indicators of involvement in this, and I think it's enough to go ahead and prosecute all at the same time. And there's a spillover effect. The more you have co-defendants arrested together, especially family members, so I think the spillover effect would make them all believe that they they all did this as a family pact, and minus, of course, the Honorable Adelson up in the New York area. So I think that that would be the best way to go about it. But obviously, they have different plans, and I just hope that they keep going after them, and I just pray that the witnesses don't become unavailable for whatever reason. Neely's asking why so much secrecy on who paid for Katie and Garcia's lawyers. Well, Garcia's lawyer initially he was given $15,000 by Katie, and then there was no more money coming forward. So that at that point, his attorney wound up going applying for court appointment status. So that's what happened for him. But Katie had three lawyers there, mind you that, and they wanted to keep it quiet, and they fought that and said it was attorney-client privilege and all that kind of stuff. But they had an in-camera inspection with Judge Hankerson, and he okayed it. But I think those are it's very easy to make it look like it came from a third party. So the attorneys might have gotten tricked in that. But I'd have been very suspicious if I was the attorney going, wait a minute, you can't even hold a steady job. You're working hourly jobs. You got all this money coming in from somewhere to be able to afford for all of us. So I think it looks very suspicious, and I don't know what they were told because it was in camera, but yeah, it does look very suspicious as if the Adelsons were paying for the attorneys. And also looks odd that they went after 11-1 vote to convict, that they would go after a trial a second time. Most attorneys would say, look, we're not going to risk 11-1 results. You're going down the next time the prosecutions improve their game, which they did, and you're going to get convicted. If you look at the announcement of the verdict in the Katie 2 trial, you'll see Jeff Lacasse, DeCoste, excuse me, Jeff DeCoste, Chris DeCoste. So I get those names mixed up. That was her male attorney there. And you could tell he's looking straight ahead. You knew she was going down. And Katie, if you look at her behavior, she was crying. She knew she was going down. The only one that was still having this face like something would work out was looks like I lost my camera here. It says that my camera was unplugged. So it's not unplugged. I haven't moved anything. So I don't know what's going on there. But in any event, I'll just keep driving forward here. Let's see. We have here a question on Harold is asking any info on the IRS actions. Well, I don't think there is an IRS action. I think that should have been something they also looked at. That's who Charlie thought the bump was. He thought it was the IRS knock on the door because he's dealing with so much cash. They had $8 million in their accounts, their various accounts. So Rabbit's asking, have you ever considered if Sigfredo and unknown friend were pre-June hitmen and that friend stole the 50,000, leaving Keating Sigfredo owing the hit and payment after that? Neither will talk for that alone. No, I don't think that would prevent them from talking. I mean, if you're ready to roll over and expose who hired you to commit a murder, this normal prosecutors are willing to cut you a pretty good deal unless you're the trigger puller to bring down the people that hired you. So I don't see that being a something that I mean, it's possible that the friend of Sigfredo's was the one that did it, but I think it was totally unrelated folks. That's why I think he decided to, and that was a year prior. He didn't even know June at that. Excuse me, he didn't even know Katie at that time. He didn't meet Katie till October or on October of 2013. So the hit happened. The attempt or intent to have a hit happen was that summer. So do not think it was that party, Sigfredo and another person. Sharon Kirkland is saying, isn't Rashmon's statement saying DA was a free woman while fleeing contradictory? Well, she was technically free because she did not have an arrest warrant at that time and she did not know of one. So technically she was free at that time, but it does look like she was suspicious of being arrested. And so that's why she left. So I think that'll be a jury instruction that could show consciousness of guilt, her efforts to flee the country. T.S. Jackson is asking, have you heard that a letter writing campaign may have led to DeSantis looking at Meg's and or Weinstein? I've not heard anything about that. I think that's a little too late. From my experience, these kind of things do not get looked at that far down the road. We're talking, 8 to 10 years ago, what people did, and they're not going to have a record of anything. So I don't see any traction with that. JD Don is asking, was Wendy's first interview altered in any way? There was mention of Amy Adler's brother. When I listened again, it was gone. Well, whoever posted, they can, depending which one you listen to, sometimes they do redact certain things. So that might have been the case. Dreamscape is asking, have you read the Garcia pro se appeal that was recently rejected? The most interesting part was his included legal letters from lawyers, his lawyers urging Garcia to ask for a deal. So I think that I've looked at that a while ago, so I'm not fresh in my memory on that, but I do recall the letter saying, you should cut a deal and reported on the Adelsons, their involvement, and he did not do that, and now he's looking at life without parole. So it's really one of the another really super bizarre twist why he wouldn't flip and and expose the Adelsons. So granted, they may not have shaved off much time, so maybe he felt that was his inducement. But look at what a great deal Luis Rivera got. So I don't know what the state attorney's office was thinking. But would they have offered murder too, like 25 to life or something in exchange for him cooperating? I don't also know how much he could have put weight on the Adelsons. I don't know how much direct involvement he had. So that could have been also the reason why they weren't really maybe wanting to cut a deal with him. Don't know if there's an impasse for that reason. More brutal asking, will the IRS go after the Adelsons? I think it's a little late for that. I think they should have been doing that a long time ago. Granted, they can go back 7 years, but I'm just not optimistic. A lot of our government prosecution teams are just not able to aggressively go after stuff the way I think they should. I think that Carol Tell was asking, what do you think when Charlie kept laughing at Georgia when she was saying the F word? I wonder what the jury thought. Yeah, I mean, that's just something that you don't use the F word as a defendant. I don't think you should use it as a lawyer, no matter what side you're on. And so I think that the him laughing and the way he had his face resting in his hand so much of the time at trial, it looked like he was way too comfortable, and I thought that was very much a sign of lack of proper seriousness. He sort of thought this whole thing's a joke, and he didn't respect the jurors and take this serious that he's facing a murder trial and facing life without parole, and just the way he's up on the stand smirking and laughing and sort of smiling, acting like he was talking like to stupid Georgia. I just thought that just came across so terrible. So there's a lot of stuff he did that just looked like something that he's not likable, number one. And what his stories came across as is absolute ridiculous. No way that ever would be reality based. And so it was just a really slam dunk win for the prosecution. So Tedrick Walker saying, have the Weinsteins had or have repercussions from slowing this down with connections? I mean, other than what I've said about Michael, like I say, as far as the dad Peter, I don't have direct evidence of what he would have done to make connections to slow this down. But I will say that, he does have the connection. He has a type of connections to be able to do that. So I don't know what repercussions he's had. I mean, it's I don't know if they're still associated with the Adelsons at all. Is Harvey still best buds with this guy? Has he walked things back in his friendship, being best friends with Harvey? And so, yeah, I mean, these are things that I would think that investigators would be knocking on the door, want to know what kind of interaction do you have and whatnot. What can you tell us about it? And not that they're going to be able to say much. I think the Barbara Weinstein will have more information on Donna than the other two, and she can invoke the attorney-client privilege for that. So I think that'd be worth pursuing. I just don't know that they're going to do that, but it would be nice if they did. And maybe there's some other defense. One of the things that you could get in talking to their closest circle is finding out what they're saying in terms of how they're going to beat the charge. So that's another good reason to go interview these kind of people. But most prosecutors do not even go down that kind of line of building a case. All right, here's a question from question from Cynthia Kelly. When did the Adelsons get counsel other than the Weinsteins? That was probably when the Weinsteins were distancing themselves from the Adelson hot mess. Yeah, I don't know that they did distance themselves. The last I know that there was connection was with this Mike Adelson. Mike Weinstein. That was back in about 4 years ago, as I heard on a 2020 segment. So now that Charlie's actually been arrested, I don't know if they just completely cut off all contacts, entire families disconnected. We don't know that. Anna's asking if Wendi would be eligible for bond if she's charged. She would stay in jail and wait trial just like the others. It's next to impossible from understanding Florida to get out on a murder one bond. Let's see, we got here another person asked about the IRS. Yeah, we just don't have any information on that. I just think that's never going to happen. Life goals asking, I think they'd be better served to try Wendy and Dad together. I think they should go for the kill, especially once Donna's convicted. I worry the case will get stale. I do too. I think that's really something that you just it's just mind-boggling how slow this thing has gone. And it's such a strong case against Charlie. And having Donna there, if Donna would have been tried with Charlie and all four of them together, I mean, it would have gone really well. I'm confident of that. Rosemary Romero's asking, do you think that that's the reason Charlie never fled to non-extradition countries because he thought he was protected by these powerful lawyers and judges? I think that gave him an aura of confidence. Yeah, I do, and I think that's one of the things he was talking about on the jail calls with his mom about how he should have gone with his gut reaction because his advisors were telling him, stick it out and fight it, and I guess Charlie was thinking he's not going to get a fair jury and it'd be better off to just go ahead and leave the country. I mean, you think about it, he knew once Katie was arrested, if he was going to flee, that'd have been the time. And he thought he'd roll the dice and just stay there, that his connections would probably take care of him. And he thought Katie is not going to flip and Katie's going to get a hung jury at worst. So I think that, even after she got a 11-1 vote to convict, the fact that he didn't leave the country then is really shocking if he was planning to flee. But I think he just really thought his connections would protect him. And so, all right. So we got here is the God is good as saying, is the protocol legal to wiretap a spouse day one after murder? If so, why didn't it happen? To wiretap a spouse after the murder? Well, in this particular case, they didn't have enough information to legally just write in, I think, for a wiretap on Donna, and they're trying to still build their case. So having it that soon happen that soon, I think is weird. I think it should have built a case about the odd behavior of Donna and how she mentioned that the family would be a part of it, and yet she drives by the crime scene. And if they would have interviewed Jeff Lacasse a lot sooner and really gone in the details of Wendy's whereabouts and what she was doing, I think they could have built a case and gone after her as well at that time. But I think she had Detective Isom fooled, and about 40 minutes in, he was already wrote her off as a suspect when that surely should not have been the case. And let's see here, we got Sidebar, he says prosecutors have so much discretion, the amount of power they can be scary if misused. Yeah, I mean, I've seen prosecutors that are they they go scorched earth. They don't really care what's fair or just, and they're just looking to grab convictions and put people in confinement for as long as they can. It's just really, really bizarre. You'd be surprised how much the prosecutors don't have a heart, and it's just sort of like they don't have a clue on what's just or not. Janie Garnett is asking, do I think that when Donna's on trial and sees Wendy on a stand, she'll just lose it? Yeah, I think that's gonna be wow, that's probably gonna be the most high tension moment to focus on. Yeah, that's gonna be really something. Excuse me. All right, if you do have questions, just put them in red like these other folks are. It makes it quicker and easier to find for me. Thank you. Rosemary is asking, is it possible Harvey will be testifying in Donna's trial as a defense witness? I just think that's such a high risk maneuver. I think he's going to try to avoid it. I don't think he's going to be there to help his wife. Even if he's not on the witness list, I don't see him sitting there watching the trial. I think he's completely afraid that he's going to be next. Is it possible he testifies? Yeah, but the risk is he's gonna all it takes is him to slip up one word, and it's gonna. I could get him to slip up if he was going to take the stand. I was Georgia. I would be able to go after him and make him look so guilty in this. So I don't see that happening. I think they realize he's at his age and everything like that. He's not going to have the mental agility to fight off some really probing questions on cross examination. He could also be testifying. He could be called by the state too. But I'd rather they don't call him and they just let him become a defense witness if that happens, and then charge him after the trial along with Wendi. Jesse's asking, what are the odds that Donna's trial will be moved to a different county? I don't see that happening. I think they'll be able to get a fair jury. I don't think the public is that much saturated with this kind of information, so I think they'll be fine. I'm sure the defense will make that motion. They always do, but it's really rare to be granted in Florida, and this case doesn't have them on a high profile nature to have that come up. Grand Maida Seven's asking, when Wendy said during the interview that the Markells are going to think she did it, Isom should ask why she thought that instead of consoling her. Your thoughts? Yeah, that's one of the things he let her off. He'd already thought she's innocent, not a part of this, so that's why he wasn't thinking on how that sounded so odd. Why would they think that? What were you telling? What were you, and he should ask like, what were you telling your parents where they would think about hiring a hitman to kill you? Right? I mean, this is like really what stuff were you told about your spouse or ex-spouse at that time that they would want to kill him? You must have said some really terrible stuff about Dan Markel. And why would you, if you knew your family was getting so upset by it, why would you keep feeding them that information? You'd keep them out of it. Go to a counselor. You don't bring your elderly parents into your marriage like that. That's just really odd. I know people do it, but especially if you thought they were making comments like Donna did, you'd really want to keep her out of the info circle. All right, Neely's asking, will they let Donna see Charlie in private? No, then he's not going to see her at all. He's not going to see his mother at all, period. So the only way he's going to ever see his mom face to face or even behind glass is if she got acquitted, then she'd be able to visit him. Just like Harvey could visit Charlie, right? But he's not able to visit Donna right now. Nobody's able to visit Donna except the lawyers. Tattletales is saying, does Wendi and Harvey have defense attorneys? Well, Wendi has John Laurel. He's one of the lead attorneys for Trump with his multiple criminal cases in different states. And Harvey has had that Descalzo attorney, that female attorney down in the Miami area, but she withdrew from Donna's case. She was representing both Harvey and Donna. And then after she didn't do so good in court and wasn't aware of all the terminology, she wound up withdrawing. And that's when they hired Roshbaum. Lisa Simone is asking, when one person posts bond, that person's found guilty, orders of bond money. The bond is just to make sure they attend trials so they don't flee the jurisdiction. So that should not have anything to do with whether being found guilty or not. If they've been out on bond the whole time, they're found guilty of a crime, then that bond should be returned. And there's a percentage that the bondsman keeps, depending on what the going rate is. And Tattletale's asking, did Isom believe Wendi appears some people do? Yeah, it's really odd. I would say anybody that believes Wendi is really much not knowledgeable about the case and they haven't spent enough time to look at it. And I think Isom just looked at how she acted. I think she put on an act like her mother said. She put it on the performance of her lifetime, and I think she did that. Was able to fake some crocodile tears, and I think her mentioning her family and stuff like that, suggesting her family, and just playing dumb. I think it was he just got totally suckered into that. He was not an experienced and seasoned homicide detective. Yeah. He brought her an advocate. Wendy brought in an advocate and all that kind of stuff. You don't do that to a murder suspect or somebody you're still trying to decide if had anything to do with it. They treat her as a victim, and it worked. They got her still to this day without any kind of a indictment. Her habit is saying how insane it will be in Tallahassee on Saturday, October 5, playing Clemson there at FSU. Another big football games. It's not the trial, it's football. Yeah, I mean it's sort of at least it's not the game's going to be on a weekend, not when the trial's going on. But yeah, that can be a distraction. Obviously, the town will be filled with thousands and thousands of fans. So it'll make harder for folks that want to go visit the trial to get a decent hotel rate. The two is asking if I know if Charlie still has a driver's license to get around town. I have no idea how he gets around. I don't know if he's in good enough condition to drive. He might be. I would think he might be old enough to. I mean, in good enough health to drive. I don't think he'd want to drive long trips so up to Tallahassee at his age. All right, can't think of one is asking. So it was a female attorney that withdrew and not Rashbaum who told Donna to flee and not give up her phone if she was her attorney before the arrest. The the female attorney, let me think on that. Rashbaum, yeah, Rashbaum was not involved at that time, but I think after she was talking to him as well as her attorney, the female attorney, Descalzo. So she was talking to both, and she mentioned Rashbaum and having a conversation with her about leaving the country. So she didn't talk about having that conversation with Descalzo. So yeah, they brought on Rashbaum after the arrest, but he wasn't an assigned attorney because she wasn't arrested yet. You don't technically have a lawyer signed up as an attorney of record if there's not a case yet that's been filed. So once you got arrested, then there was a chance to file what they call notice of appearance for the attorney. So yeah, she could talk to any number of attorneys she wanted up to that point. Leslie M is asking, when they arrested Donna and they were wrestling her phone away from her, Harvey was speaking in first person. I don't want to. Why do I have to? Thoughts on this? Repeating after rehearsal. Xanax. Yeah, they probably are heavy Xanax users, and so I think that probably is something that might affect their behavior. I think they're pretty calm. I think Donna acted like she was expecting to be arrested and just sort of relieved it happened. I know that clinical psychologist believes that's the case, that she just the suspense was just killing her, and that's one of the advantages if you do flee, that at least you'll have the you'll know whether or not you're going to get arrested if they want to go after you that bad. Otherwise, if she would have made it to Vietnam, they still could have always gone after her, but it would have been involving some kind of a diplomatic efforts, including maybe money given to Vietnam in order to effectuate that. So there are people that are in Vietnam that get extradited back to the United States. There's just not a formal agreement on how that happens. So, and if it's for murder one, I think eventually it would have been brought back. Maybe she would have died there before they had a chance to do it. So it could have delayed it out a couple of years at least. Rosemary Romero is asking, do I think Jeff LaCasse would be given any recognition for helping detectives break the case in Dan Markel's murder? I don't know what kind of recognition that he would want. I think he's just doing his job. I think he would like to have seen this be done years ago as well. I mean, this is really tough on witnesses going time and time again. I mean, you had what, four Adelsons plus Katie, that's five, plus Sigfredo, that's six. And then you got Luis Rivera, that's seven. Only Luis Rivera pled guilty. So you got to go after six people. Now, they did do a joint trial initially with Sigfredo and Katie, but yeah, that's it's just such a bizarre method. I just don't agree with that. So I don't know what recognition that he would want or what they would give him, but yeah, he did pretty much go back on his own a couple times, and really after it really sunk in on how they played him and how he was basically going to be the fall guy for this, but for the fact that he left a day early up to Tennessee. So I think he just would like to see probably justice be done. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy that's looking for recognition. Lisa Avellino's asking, do I think the picture of Wendi with Catherine McBanwell 1 month before Dan was murdered will show that Wendi ordered it? I think the fact that, like, somebody's pointed out, or at least several people pointed out, the fact they're so close, shoulder to shoulder, arm to arm, like they are, I think that does indicate that there's some kind of a unusual connection there for just supposedly meeting. So I don't know what that's all about, but I do think that I think it does tie her closer into the hitman. I think they did the best they could in keeping her away, but she had too much. There's too many other indicators to show she was a part of this plan, as we've talked about in the past. All right, so we got here. Lovely Spinks is asking, do you think Markel's can sue Wendy for theft of the ring? She's never going to admit to that, and you're just wasting time. And she'll say she gave it back or did something with it, and it's not worth the aggravation. And I mean, hopefully the boys would someday get it, but I think that just goes to show hatred. And so if the denial of that ring giving back helps her get convicted, I think it's a good data point to use as a prosecutor. If that helps her get convicted, I would say at least that's the consolation that the Markells have, is that her doing that to them, her denying the visitation, taking the ring, doing all the stuff she did to mess with Dan. And I think that's going to help prosecution. And so I'll just take consolation in that for now and not worry about bringing a lawsuit, hiring attorneys, do all that for something you're not going to see a return on it for the money expensed. And then as far as covering other cases like Michelle Triconius, I've heard that name before. I'm not covering that one. And so can't help you out on that one right now. Sorry. But I did start the other day the Brightigan case, Jared Brightigan, who was murdered. And his ex-wife was arrested for that. And that's just 2 hours away roughly from Tallahassee and Jacksonville Beach, Florida. So I think there should be definitely some interesting stuff coming out of that case. And I think the parallels to this case are very unique, and that's one of the reasons I agreed to cover it. And we also have the that interesting attorney that I've not seen in court before, being the defense lawyer for Shanna Gardner, Jose Baez. So I've not seen it before, so I'm interesting to see how he does in court, and I'll be commenting on. I intend to do a live commentary on the case for that. Bugs Bunny is asking, does the FBI assist in state crimes or only in federal crimes? Well, they've done a lot of assistance on this case, so I think that that's indicative of how they do provide a lot of great assistance. They have a lot of capabilities of forensic type that state Bureau of Investigations do not have, and so I think they have a good partnership working with them to try to help solve cases. And I think you've seen that time and time again. I think that Idaho case where the guy murdered those 4 college students, I think the FBI was brought into there. Definitely, I think they had like 40, 50 some agents on the ground trying to help out, lead that task force. I know in the case up here in Kentucky involving Crystal Rogers, I know the FBI got involved in that one because I think the state and local folks just weren't able to get any traction. There was so much protection for the family that's since been now arrested. Out the FBI got involved. So yeah, a lot of times the FBI can bring in a lot of resources that the local folks and the state folks just don't have the resources, or maybe even sometimes it's maybe the time and ability to do that. And sometimes I think that there's a good way to take the local politics out of it as well. All right, so let's see here. We got yeah, I'm Jody Langley's asking about what kind of immunity Wendy has. I've gone over that a number of times, so I'll pass on that one, but I've talked about that before if you want to go back and look. She still can be prosecuted for being involved in the murder of Dan Markel. So hopefully that's going to happen. Eric Lieber's asking, remember during the trial when Charlie said in in response to George that he was be worried about the Latin Kings when he gets out, meaning he'll be acquitted. Yeah, I mean that was a very cocky thing to say. That just shows basically y'all just wasting my time. I'm gonna be walking out of here. I just completely disrespectful comment to the jury, and that kind of stuff is does not go unnoticed by jurors when you got that kind of cocky, arrogant attitude. You can even be like not having enough evidence to convict you, and you start acting like Charlie does, and they'll basically be looking for stuff and be eager to convict somebody like that. So, but in this case, that wasn't the case at all because the case was so overwhelming with evidence of his involvement in the murder. Nora Vine is asking, Isom never noticed that Wendy and her friend cracking jokes between their fake sobbing. Yeah, that was just so cringy, wasn't it? She did not act like this was going to cause any hardship to her. She was not worried about the boys from what it looked like to me at all. That should have been a clue right there. So let's see. We got here. Janie Garnett's asking if I think Winnie's going to try to flee with or without the boys. I think that she's not made the decision yet, but I think if mom gets convicted, she'll have to seriously consider that. That's why I hope they're building a case already now. If you stop to think about it, they weren't ready to arrest Donna right away. They should have had that already ginned up. They were scrambling the day they found out she was getting ready to leave. Thankfully, they got done in time, but boy, you're sure cutting it close. You got to her plane like 40 minutes before your plane was taken off. MM is asking why there's no video of Charlie's arrest. Are they hiding something? I think maybe because that was FBI led, and then maybe that's why they don't release it, because the FBI wanted to not have the video, and they're going to keep it. The FBI does not release information to the public like the state laws provide for. So I think that maybe that's why. So let's see here. We got okay, society page. Hey, how you doing? Not sure if this was covered, but Law of LV reported this, that jury selection is expected to conclude by Friday, October 4th. Trial set to begin the following Monday, October 7th. So thank you for that. I'm not tracking that. I know it somehow changed. I just can't remember the exact details. But the I do think that this one's not going to get bounced to the right like Charlie was. I think that they really want to get this out of the way, and I don't think Donna's going to be able to hold out that long, despite her doing relatively decent for right now. I think that waiting there through the summer and all that kind of stuff is really going to start to wear on her, and the bad food and stuff, as I mentioned. So yeah, let's hope they stick with this. I think they will. I think it's a firm schedule, unless something different changes. And there's always a wrench that can be thrown into something. So, but I think this one is about as set as they can be. And granted, it's conditional upon her having good health from now until then. That's probably the biggest risk factor is her health. Marshall Clark is asking, why do you think Wendy ran the risk of just cost going to the police after she told him Charlie wanted to hire a hitman? Yeah, I think that the whole thing about hiring the hitman, I think it was such an unusual statement to make. It was sort of weird and creepy and stuff like that. But I mean, it was already an issue that it was passed, and there was no ongoing threat. It was over a year old, roughly a year old. So it wasn't like an active threat. I think if she would have said something, um, like it was active. I think the reason why she said this though is because not because she wanted to go to police, because that would have stopped it. I think she wanted them dead. I think this issue is, I think she was trying to plant seeds to be able to claim that she was innocent in case they came after Charlie. And so I think she played that, and it worked really good with Isom, because Isom was thinking, oh, well, gosh, anybody's willing to give up your brother and your parents and make it sound like they had possible motives to get Dan killed. I mean, why would you be involved? I think that she played that well. I don't think that was part of the script she was supposed to give. And if it was part of the script, maybe they thought, well, better us be the target of it, because you did have a custody thing, and they're going to think that, okay, you're the number one target, so we'll take some heat off you, and you just can point the finger to us. So, I mean, that's a possibility as well. But I think she really ramped up the fact you need to look at my family. But at the same time, she tried to quickly dissuade it, just like she said, oh, my parents sounded surprised when I told them, and yet Harvey wasn't even part of the conversation. She tried to downplay how busy the schedule was for Charlie. So she made try to make it sound like he's too busy of a dentist to worry about, trying to get involved in a murder plot. Yeah. So JQ's asked a similar thing about any rationales why Wendy would share with Jeff the Hitman idea. So yeah, it is really sort of bizarre and weird, but I think it's a good thing that that came out at trial, and I think it's great that Jeff brought that forward, and he's not just put that off on the burner and not going to bring it up. I mean, he's bringing it up, and I think it's very, very telling to show that there was too much connection going on between all the Adelsons in this, including Wendy. Teresa M says it's beyond awful that she kept a Holocaust ring. Well, mark my words, this will help get her convicted. So if she's going to act that way and it's going to help convict her, just like the name change, the denial of visitation. I mean, this is like, you don't get any really meaner, nastier than that. Showing hatred to the extent you're punishing your own kids from the Markells. That to me is why this thing really should have been ramped up sooner, just for the sake of protecting the boys. All right, so let's see here. Tim F is asking if I'm aware that the Markells had to sign away all civil litigation rights against Wendi to get Dan's house sold because of the promissory note. John Laurel likely engineered this. No, I'm not aware of that. I've not heard that before. I don't know if that's true. If you want to let me know how you know of that, that's something I've not seen before, but it wouldn't surprise me. Okay, Steph P is saying they may very well change the date for Donna because, as the other commentator said, the high holy days are very serious days, whereas in Hanukkah it's not considered a high holy day. Yeah, I don't know about that, so I can't track it. I don't know why they wouldn't have brought up that earlier because the longer they wait to change the date, the sooner it's going to fill up around that date that they have scheduled, that couple week window. So I think it's could push it out, months later. The longer they wait, the more it's going to get pushed to the right. So I would be very surprised if that'd be the case. I've never seen it before where a judge sets aside, um, something like that at these high holy days for a court schedule. I've never seen that before in any state or federal or military court I've been in. Listener is saying, I used to ask myself, why isn't Donna in jail? But eventually she was arrested. The same could happen with Wendi. We just have to wait and see. Yeah, let's just pray it works out, that justice happens. Rosemary Romero is asking, do you think there are any other extended family members that the Adelsons may have told about the hits? Suppose the Adelsons have family in Texas. Yeah, I'm not sure where they're at, but I think I think it's worth that. I think it's worth them going into as much as they can about families and associates and whatnot. So, yep. Kenny H is asking if I ever had a good belly laugh. Yeah, that was back in 1996, I think. Now, actually, it was the time I really remember is when the um, the opening statement was being given by Roshbaum. That was a riot, and the comments from the commenters was the thing that really tipped the scale for me. I was laughing so hard I was crying. So yeah, it was it was something, I tell you. I've never seen such an atrocious opening, and I was on. I got called up on a short notice on Survivor at that time, so it's not on my channel. The next day I started covering it, but the first day of arguments there was on Survivor. So if you want to go back and look, um, but you got to keep in mind, I'm talking about a murder case here. I'm thinking strategy, tactics. I'm thinking like a trial attorney, and so and it's trying to have dignity and respect for the Markells, and they're still suffering, not seeing the boys, stuff like that, and the outrageous delay. This is all involved. So there's a lot of stuff here that's emotional. So I think having being able to sit back and chuckle and snicker about it. It's just not my personality for something like this. And I'm just trying to have the right tone. And like I say, my mindset's like I'm in court and I'm ready to prosecute the Adelson. So that you got to understand my mindset. And so I'm not here for social call and whatnot. I'm here for serious strategic and tactical legal discussions on what should be done right from my experience on going after these Adelsons and making them face justice. that's been denied for large extents for almost a decade now. So I just wanted to answer that one. And Roxanne A is asking, can the Weinsteins get subpoenaed for the upcoming trial? Absolutely, they could. But I think, like I say, the attorney-client privilege is an issue that's going to protect most likely the two attorneys, the judge and his son. But I think there's definitely a chance that I'd be looking at interviewing for sure any of the close contacts of Donna, to include Mrs. Weinstein, named Barbara. And Barbara's even mentioned, and Peter and Barbara, like I say, are mentioned on the wiretap. So definitely something to follow up on. Whether it's done or not, who knows? All right, so let's see. Where is Helmut Fliegler is saying, if the defense gets change of venue, would be a change of process. There's not going to be a change of venue, and the prosecutors stay the same. They just would have to travel there and stay in a hotel if it's too far to drive back home every night. It's a bit. This is a big hassle. All right, so now we see here that Christine McLeod is saying, if the March dinner with Katie implicates Wendi, doesn't also implicate Jeff? So you're talking about Jeff Lacasse? I believe Wendi paid Katie money at that dinner. Well, there's no evidence that she did that, and Jeff Lacasse was just there being set up as the fall guy to take the blame. So I don't know what you mean by how it's implicating him. That makes no sense at all. It sounds like he might have been listening to this one podcaster that was basically saying Jeff had a criminal record and stuff like that. I think that got blown out of the water from what I've heard in the last day or two, where the guy's totally backpedaling now, and he basically took some other guy's record and didn't adequately research the fact that Jeff Lacasse has an absolutely clean record. It was some other guy with the same name, completely different date of birth and whatnot. So it was something that was retracted, and I guess the guy even admitted he'd never really closely looked at it to see if it was the Jeff Lacasse at issue in this case. So yeah, it's just really reckless, and you're not helping the prosecution at all. You're just trying to basically slander a key witness for the government that's helped solve this case practically from day one. Side Barbie is saying Carl doesn't want people to pay super chat and pay. Yeah, just I hate advertising. If you guys don't have the Prime, YouTube Prime, I recommend you guys get that. I think it's like 15 or 25 bucks a month, but then that way you get no commercials. And so yeah, I mean, I see these other channels getting 50, 100 bucks, even 500 bucks for some of their podcasts. But I just think, if it's monetized, you get paid for the views and stuff like that. And that's I just don't need your money, so keep it. So I would say a lot of people are hurting for money and stuff like that. And I just appreciate the fact that you guys are doing justice for the Markells by following this case, asking a lot of good questions, and keeping our foot on the gas and making sure that they don't just stop at Donna. A lot of people were not saying there was enough evidence against any of the Adelsons, and they were going to not prosecute them, and that was too hard of a case. And, Charlie would only get a hung jury, and all this kind of nonsense. And I just like, it really annoyed me, as it did so many of you. And that's why my brother was able to talk me into doing this thing. So Emily, I agree with you. I've said that before. I think she brought up to see if Jeff would volunteer. Yeah, I think he was, as I've said before, I think he was either supposed to be a volunteer for the murder, or he was going to be the scapegoat. So either way, he was played for 8 months just for that purpose. It's so obvious, and that's what Georgia argued to the jury. So, and I think they totally saw it for what it was. All right, so now we got here. David Martin's asking if I'd seen the new search warrant due to the new technology. I did not see it. I heard about it. But yeah, I think that was only on one of the devices. So I think they had trouble opening it. Now they got the software to open it. And now that they do, I think that's going to be granted. And that's going to lead to more incriminating evidence against probably all three of the remaining Adelsons, Donna, Harvey, and Wendi. Tattletales is asking why the other folks in prison, why it's so long for the Adelsons, because the prosecution took their time. I mean, COVID helped slow a little bit of the speed on this, but they want to do one at a time. And so, yeah, it makes no sense to me, but at least, at least they're doing something. And so I think they need to make sure they just don't let off the gas, because you go after Edelsons and good thing happen to get justice for the Markells. Joy Matt is saying, when do you agree to give it back? You're talking about the obviously the Holocaust survivor ring. She said if Dan's 95-year-old uncle asked for it back in writing, she'd give it back. He did, and they still haven't received it. Yeah, that's my understanding of it. So thank you. Thanks, bossy Texas chick. That's nice. Yeah, Ricky's asking, what does he mean he was on survival? Yeah, I wasn't on one of those survival shows on TV. No, it was a different podcast, Surviving the Survivor. So it was back. If you look at Charlie's Trial, if you want to see it, if you don't believe me, but it is a classic. That opening for Rashbaum, it was like probably the worst opening I've ever seen. Yeah, that whole trial, the whole defense thing is about as bad as you could ever get. So CJG is asking, can a jury still fine? You're saying FINE, a person guilty. I think you mean fined, FIND, a person guilty if they plead the fifth. Yeah. So what we have is the burden in the American justice system, as well. I'm sure it's a British and Australian and most Western societies. There's no requirement to have to testify in your own defense. The burden's all in the state or the federal government, whichever the case is. And your right to remain silent is a constitutional right. The state cannot force you and compel you to testify. And with that, there's an instruction to the jury that should not be considered evidence of your guilt. They should disregard that and not hold it against you. Words to that effect. So yeah, it's totally the requirement on the state and the feds if they're prosecuting, and the defense doesn't have to present anything. The defense could just sit there and not argue, not have any cross-examination questions of the prosecution witnesses, and not call their own witnesses for a defense case. And the burden's still on the prosecution, and they have to prove it beyond reasonable doubt. So yeah, the defense really doesn't have to do anything. It's all the total burden is on the prosecution. Now, the defense, if they want to raise certain types of defenses, you got to raise some evidence of a defense before it can have some kind of instructions or stuff like that. So there's different times when the defense does need to present something to get certain types of jury instructions. So that's a little bit different issue I won't get into, but overall, the general proof of guilt is based on the government. Glamis Girl's asking, do I think Donna's tally attorney will do the voir dire? I think that might be the case just because he's a local guy. And I think that he's going to try to get that rapport with them because he doesn't look like Rashbaum, who looks like he's some kind of New York City guy and just doesn't fit in, just like those jury consultants. So I think that that's probably what they'll do, but it's hard saying. They may do a tag team and they both take turns asking different questions, but not sure if they've already decided how to divide it up yet. All right, so Timothy Swire, where was your question? I tried to click it and it disappeared. Sorry. I think I jumped up too high. Let me go back down here. Neely's asking, does Donna just want this trial just to see Charlie one last time in the courtroom? She knows she's done. Maybe that's what this is all about. Well, that remains to be seen if Charlie's even brought in the courtroom. Is he going to testify? That remains to be seen. I don't know if the prosecution is going to bring him to the witness stand as a defense counsel. He is the way Charlie comes off. That's going to help get her convicted. So yeah, maybe they'll call her, but I'm just saying it's remains to be seen. I've said this before. Generally, you don't ever want a co-conspirator to testify against your client. It's just, especially if they're guilty, it's too much super high risk games. It's at play there. So DePriest is saying Wendi and Harvey can still be arrested before Donna goes to trial. They can all sit in jail waiting trial. Yeah, keep in mind that the attorney for Dan Markel in the civil action against Wendi, he thought that maybe Wendi would be at the defense table with her mom at a trial, but I just thought that was a little bit too optimistic. I think they're going to wait till after Donna gets arrested, unless his digital evidence convinces them to go ahead and get bold and go after him earlier. Can't think of one as saying, is that around the time of the first hit or just after the arm-to-arm photo with Katie on the beach? Before the successful killing, the month after the photo? No, I think that was around, gosh, I think that was around March. I do not think that was around June. I'm pretty sure it wasn't in June or July. I think it was around March. If my memory's wrong on that, could somebody please jump in? Yeah, why isn't Wendy in jail? That's the big ultimate question. Yeah, I agree. All right, I think I'm not far enough on questions. Let's see here. Emily is asking, has the state not considered that waiting to prosecute Wednesday, the boys will be close to college age with this delay? It's urgent the boys get a new family support system started with Robert Markells. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I see some questions, people saying, well, maybe the prosecution's waiting and just till the boys get out of high school so that they have a chance to, be with their mom still. And I'm just like, I don't see the prosecution ever thinking that is a reason why. If anything, that's like, we got to get the boys out of that because think of what they're being conditioned for. So I think the lack of contact with the Markells on a regular basis is super damaging to the boys psychologically, and that's what's really got, I think, one of the most aggravating things about it, because that's an ongoing pain, an ongoing wound to the Markells, and it's absolutely disgusting and outright evil. And I'm telling you, that would be they would just be eaten alive by a jury if Wendy got up there. And Donna, they're going to see the same thing. They're going to see the same thing with Donna being behind that as well. The hatred of Dan Markel is unmitigated and unrelenting, even to this day, almost 10 years later. And that's what ultimately was going to help bring them all down. That's the one saving grace about it. Yeah, a lot of good comments here. I won't, just different ones. Yeah, thanks, Lisa Mon. Camera port. Yeah, my camera port is fine. Don't know why. Like I said, I wasn't moving anything having to do with my computer or camera. I don't know why it did that. It's sort of like the older ones that overheated, but John got me this one that has internal cooling fans. I don't know why it did that. All right, so we're about 8:51 here. So let's see. I'm going to look for a couple more questions. Lisa Mana is asking, I wonder if the boys have any idea if the grandmother wrote a book. Yeah, I have no idea. That's just really hard to think about. And it's got to be rough for them. But someday they'll know about it if they don't know. And what a sad thing for the boys that their grandma has to write a book about all that she's had to endure just because of the mean cruelty. And they're basically, in a large part, effectively, the whole family's effectively killed off in so many ways, the whole family tree. Yeah, LG's not feeling good. I took her to the vet here. She was overnight at the hospital. She wasn't doing so good. She's feeling better now, but on antibiotics. So that's why you're not seeing her run around like she normally is. All right, let's see here. Yeah, I don't know anything about dating for Wendi. Sir Barry is asking if something was found on Donna's phone, could Donna, Charlie, and Wendi, or Charlie, I think you mean Harvey, be tried together after the trial date set? I think the longer that is not happening, or they prosecute him, I think that's going to take a lot. It's going to be harder to marry those up. I think we're probably past that point right now, and their attorneys may not want to go to trial as fast. So yeah, I think that's probably never going to happen now. But it'd be nice if we went ahead and charged those three remaining together. I'm sorry, the other two, Harvey and Wendi. Yeah, LG has some kind of GI problem. But she's a tough cookie. Thank you for your concerns about little LJ. Cats are never to blame. Yeah. Leo just jumped up here on the desk, so you can't see Leo, but he's a little bit jealous of time here now. All right, Sharon Kurland is asking what went wrong with the first attempt and where did the 50K go? That's just something we heard about through different channels about somebody in jail had reported that they had heard about that. And so it's sort of sketchy. Don't know if that's true or not, but that's what the reports are. John Dolman is asking, will Don insist on testifying? It's her call. Is there anything the attorneys will advise her that to bring your defense forward, you absolutely have to testify. So yeah, the prosecution has all this time to get ready for her testimony. So yep. There's no doubt in my mind she's going to testify if it gets to that. So all right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and appreciate all you guys supporting the Justice for Raquel's. I'm going to follow some more up on this issue and see if there's different references I can give you on connections that the Adelsons had to any different attorneys or political connections. So let me do some more research on that, and I'll circle back and maybe cover that some more, and we'll go from there. So have a good night. Have a safe week, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks for supporting Justice for the Markells.